Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really complex term, suicidal empathy.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. And confusing because honestly, it splits into two completely separate ideas.
Exactly. One is this intense clinical technique aimed at saving lives. The other, it's used as a sharp social critique. So our job today is to, unpack both, see what they actually mean, and figure out if there's some kind of shared lesson underneath it all.
Let's start with the clinical side, the micro level.
Okay.
So in some therapeutic circles, particularly thinking about work like Orvax, you have this concept, therapeutic empathy with the suicidal wish.
Whoa, okay. That sounds intense.
It is. It's radical. The core idea is that the therapist has to temporarily really get the patient's perspective to the point where they can genuinely see from the patient's viewpoint why death might feel like the only option available right now.
The only option.
Yes, because the drive often comes from this unbearable psychological pain. Clinicians call it psyche. It's this feeling that life is just intolerable suffering with no way out. The therapist needs to connect with that feeling deeply.
Okay, wait. That seems incredibly risky. How do you connect that deeply without, accidentally pushing them towards it or seeming like you agree?
That's the absolute crux of it. It's a paradox. It's described as a strategic, temporary regression. You're joining them in that dark place just long enough.
Just long enough to do what?
To build trust. To show them unequivocally, I understand the depth of your pain. That validation is crucial. It's not an endorsement of suicide. Think of it as the foundation you need before you can do the next step, which is the cognitive work, the confrontation, gently challenging that belief and reaffirming life.
So it's connecting with the feeling, but not agreeing with the conclusion.
Precisely. You validate the pain to earn the right to question the solution. It demands immense internal regulation from the therapist.
Right, holding on to reality while diving deep emotionally. Okay, so if that's the micro level, how does this idea of maybe empathy going wrong play out on a bigger scale? Let's zoom out.
This is where the second meaning comes in, the societal critique.
Yeah, this is the one you hear about more in sociopolitical discussions.
Right.
People like Gad Saad have popularized this usage. Here, suicidal empathy isn't a therapeutic tool. It's framed as a kind of dangerous excess.
Exactly. It's seen as this unchecked, almost pathologically strong compassion that ends up paralyzing rational thought.
Paralyzing how? What are the supposed consequences?
Well, the argument, as presented by its proponents, is that policies driven solely by this kind of broad, abstract empathy, say massive foreign aid without strict conditions or certain criminal justice approaches, can ignore tangible harms or concerns closer to home.
So the idea is that it prioritizes an abstract good over local needs.
Kind of. And the critique goes further, suggesting this can create a sense of symbolic violence for citizens who feel ignored or marginalized by these policies.
Symbolic violence.
Yeah.
Meaning not physical, obviously.
No, not physical. It's more the feeling that your legitimate concerns, your struggles, are being dismissed or invalidated by elites or policymakers, acting out of a sense of perceived moral superiority.
So their empathy, even if maybe well-intentioned in theory, is argued to be destructive in practice because it lacks grounding, accountability.
Accountability, consequence assessment, maybe a sense of balance with other principles like justice or security. That's the core of the critique. It's empathy detached from rational limits.
Okay, so we have these two starkly different meanings, a life-saving clinical tool and a societal danger signal. What connects them? Is there a link?
I think there is. Both scenarios, whether saving one person or managing a society, highlight that empathy is this incredibly powerful emotional force. It's like high energy. And like any high energy system, if it's unregulated, it can be destructive.
Unregulated?
Yes. The unifying lesson seems to be the absolute need for discernment.
Discernment. Meaning what exactly?
Well, clinically, it's that delicate balance. The deep emotional connection plus the cognitive reality check. Holding both. Societally, the call is essentially for empathy with accountability. It means balancing that genuine moral sentiment with a hard look at consequences, at fairness, at the bigger picture.
So it's not about not feeling empathy. It's about how you channel it, how you frame it with reason.
Exactly. It's about structure, boundaries.
Yeah.
Pure, unbounded feeling, whether in therapy or policy, can apparently lead you astray according to both these perspectives.
This makes me think, we do this on a smaller scale all the time. With friends, family, you validate their pain, but you can't let their crisis completely define reality for both of you.
That's a great parallel. There's always a need to balance connection with perspective.
So here's the takeaway question for you listening. If empathy is so vital, But empathy without limits can be harmful. Where do you draw the line? How do you balance compassion with self-preservation or with rational assessment in your own life? And how do we do it as a society? Something to think about. That's our deep dive for today.